This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices. That's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies. So you save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
What's up, champs? Welcome to another episode of the Short Shifts Fantasy Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Keeping Karlsson. I'm your host, Louis Ezekiel. Joining me tonight, my pal and yours, Elizabeth. How are you doing this fine Tuesday evening? And congratulations, I believe you were saying you have clinched a playoff spot?
I have just barely clinched my playoff spot. It was tooth and nail there for a long time. I don't know how I clinched it. I'm very excited. I should be in the playoffs, but it's going to be a tough run because me, like probably many of our listeners, had to sell the farm to get here. But it's all about making it to the playoffs, then anything can happen. So I'm excited.
Yeah, there you go. That is no mean feat. So congratulations. That's awesome. And to everybody else out there who is clinched in the playoff, or maybe looking at the consolation bracket, or maybe fighting this final week here to stay alive. We're going to try and give you the best advice that we can to help you be successful and get where you want to be in your fantasy hockey playoffs. So thank you so much for joining us. And with that, let's jump right into it. I think without a doubt, the biggest headline since the mega show happened down in Florida. Why don't you take it away, Elizabeth? Tell us about what is going on the Florida Blue Line.
Huge news out of Florida. I think this came as a shock to everybody, but we will be without Aaron Ekblad for 20 games. He's got a 20-game suspension that's going to take him right into the playoffs. So for your redraft leagues, this is easily a drop now and find a replacement. But the good news, I think, out of all of this is the Seth Jones owners, who are maybe a little bit worried about him in Florida, wondering how he was going to be situated there. Tonight, he's paired with Forsling, and he's been bumped to that top power play. He already had an assist before we started the show tonight, so things are looking good for him, but unfortunate for the Aaron Ekblad owners.
Yeah, no doubt. Comes obviously at a tough time. He did go 0 on Yahoo, so at least you'll be able to stash him, or realistically just drop him away. But finding that replacement. This is, I think, sort of the natural spot for where Jones should have been ending up anyway. So maybe this just hastened things up a little bit. But yeah, good to see Seth Jones out there on the top power play. Obviously unfortunate for Ekblad, but he was a little out of place in that position anyway, in my opinion. So a nice spot for Jones, and like we said, already contributing. So you definitely like to see that. I believe Ekblad will also miss 2 games in the playoffs, so that could have a little bit of an impact. Luckily, of course, we know that the Panthers are pretty deep on that blue line. So hopefully they'll be able to weather that storm. But yeah, a tough look certainly for our guy Ekblad. Speaking of folks who are playing tough on the back end, a really big night on Monday for Linus Ullmark. Unfortunately, against the Red Wings, made 48 saves in that 2-1 victory, 27 saves in the second period alone, more than Talbot had to make all night on the other end of the ice. Ullmark is 4-0-1 in his last 5 starts, so didn't have probably the start of the season that his drafters hoped to see, but he seems to be righting the ship here late in the season. 11 of those shots alone came from Alex DeBrincat, who also played a little bit of goalie towards the end of the game, trying to keep things alive. So good on the cat, but unfortunately the Red Wings could not solve Ullmark more than the one time. Huge game for him, and very nice for his fantasy owners as well.
Exactly. I mean, how could you be mad about this? He had an amazing night. They're on a back-to-back, so tonight he's obviously getting the rest that he has earned after last night. And I think this is a big sign for Ottawa. I mean, we know that the NHL playoffs won't impact our fantasy teams, but they are in that wild card fight. And I think having a goalie on the back end like this, who's just really starting to heat up, is going to be exciting for those Ottawa fans.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And, we have seen Ottawa maybe playing a little looser lately. They have solved those scoring woes. Brady Tkachuk was obviously, suffering. And of course, they now have Matty Tkachuk out, but really seems like the scoring has stepped up. And maybe that can be said to be in part because of the confidence they have in the goalie.
Exactly. In other exciting news, and for our very deep leagues keeper types, we had a very first NHL game for Artem Levshunov playing out in Chicago, 20 minutes of time on ice for his first game. Very exciting out there. 6 shot attempts, 3 of those were on goal. So 3 shots on goal, 2 blocks. That's giving him 2.5 Cacuful points in his first outing there. So very exciting. Unfortunately, Chicago still lost the game to Colorado, but I'm sure that is a memory that he's going to cherish for a while.
Yeah, I think the outcome is not super surprising. Although what is surprising is that was the first time Chicago has been shut out this season. Shut out 12 times last year. And it took them all the way into March to be shut out. So that is a bit of a feather in the cap, I think, for the Blackhawks, despite, their other struggles. They talked about sort of having some distractions shipped out. Not sure exactly who they're referring to because a lot of players ended up leaving Chicago. But I think that, they are focused on playing hard. And yes, they got shut out, but, hopefully a sign of some good things to come. But wanted to throw that one out there for all the prospect heads. I know Levshunov's first game out there was a very exciting moment for those folks. Jumping over to some injuries and outjuries. We have an outjury for Victor Hedman back in the game. Only missed one and returned to action against Carolina. Returns to the top pairing, the top power play. Darren Radish did manage another assist, and Hedman has not factored in. The only one goal scored by Tampa Bay. And we'll talk about another Tampa player who might be on a little bit of a cold streak, despite, just a ton of opportunity to play. But we'll get to that in just a little bit. We'll mention Andrei Vasilevskiy a little bit later in the show. And another big defender, very important for their team, Elizabeth. Take us to Vancouver.
Yes, Quinn Hughes potentially returning tomorrow. The team is on a back-to-back playing tonight and tomorrow, but Coach Rick Tocchet said that he may play Wednesday. This is exciting. Vancouver fans will be really happy to hear of his return. They have another back-to-back later this week. So for our fantasy fans, they're going to want to watch those lines. Saturday is a bit of a busy day there. Make sure you can fit him in. But this is exciting because the defensemen were starting to rotate in practice, trying to see what that expectation will look like when Hughes jumps back in. He should be back on that top pairing with Hronek. He should reclaim his power play spot. I would be surprised if he were to come in anywhere else. But it sounds like the team is excited to have him back and that they are ready for this, even though they wish that they were not doing it on these back-to-backs.
Yeah, for sure. An injury here that we got to talk about in Dallas. Roope Hintz took a puck to the face on Saturday night and has been ruled out for at least a week. The doctor's orders are to relax. I feel like they're a little paradoxical. He was told he has to keep his heart rate low. For me, I feel like if someone is telling me that I have to keep my heart rate low if I want to get healthy again, that is going to cause my heart rate to rise. But Hintz has just been outstanding. 17 points in his last 8 games. If we want to shrink it down just to March, he's averaging 3 points a game, not fantasy points. We're talking NHL points a game in the month of March. Dallas has just been on fire. A lot of people's pick to potentially win the cup. So Hintz' absence obviously is not ideal. But we have Wyatt Johnson playing with Jason Robertson and Mikko Rantanen. That's a nice line there. Second line, Duchesne, Ben Granlund. And that top power play, Rantanen, Duchesne, Robertson, Harley, and Johnston. Dallas has the benefit, certainly, of being able to kind of come at you in waves. We talked about how they've lost Heiskanen, they've lost Sagan. And, obviously acquiring Rantanen was very effective. And Matt Duchesne has just been outstanding again this season. But they've sort of weathered the storm here a little bit, and now that top group is scoring again and throwing Rantanen into the mix, they are playing really well, and it's been an outstanding March for them, and really, just the spring overall has been a nice opportunity for them so far. So good for Dallas, and I'm sure the fantasy owners want to keep seeing that coming, and hopefully Hintz back before we know it. Let's jump over to another injury in Carolina.
Yes, going back to Mikko's last team, if we can call it that. It was a short-lived stay there. But we've got Andrei Svechnikov out in Carolina. He's being evaluated still after being injured in Sunday's game, so that's not great news for fantasy managers. Hopefully we get an update here shortly. The practice lines today had Aho playing with Hall and Jackson Blake. So that'll be an interesting line if that's the way things go. Hopefully Svechnikov is back right away here, and this isn't a huge thing that we need to worry about, especially with those fantasy playoffs upcoming. I'm sure people would prefer to have him out there, even though he has been on a bit of a cold streak, I believe, lately.
Yeah, he has nothing in the last 5 games, just 1 assist over the last 7. Some concerning items in here besides, probably earning what is pretty clearly a Band-Aid boy status here with this latest injury. He is on pace for just 56 points over 82 games. This would be his lowest points per game output since his rookie season back in 18-19 when he was under a half a point per game. Shooting percentage is down a little bit, although his shots have rebounded a little bit from where they fell to last year, but still well below the 3.2 shots per game he was getting in 21-22 and 22-23. Still producing the hits, which is great, still producing some power play points, but I think you worry a little bit about what we've been seeing from Svechnikov as far as development and maybe a little bit of fragility. Although I can't talk too much. I've been nursing a sprained finger for several weeks from soccer. If I was a hockey player, I imagine I would be back in the action long ago because they are built different. But yeah, tough to see Svechnikov out. But, it seems like Carolina has been able to hang in there decently without him. They have put 4 goals, I believe, on Andrei Vasilevskiy here tonight. So, they are doing okay without Rantanen and Svech, but always good to have, your best players around and developing and not being injured. We also have some Oilers injury updates. So we're going to jump over to the expert here. Elizabeth, tell us the latest with your Oilers. We got several, we got some defensemen and some other updates here.
Yeah, we got a couple of updates recently on these Edmonton Oilers injuries. They weren't, I don't think any surprising updates by any means, but we did get updates. So we want to share them with you guys. Evander Kane, not going to be returning this year. He's gone through abdominal surgery and knee surgery, so he is out for the remainder of the season. I don't think anybody was holding out on him to save their fantasy weeks, but that is some news that I'm sure Oilers fans are a little bit sad about, knowing that he is such a playoff beast when it comes to the actual NHL playoffs. A little bit more concerning and interesting for us, though, is the defenseman. We've got both John Klingberg and Matthias Ekholm out, both with undisclosed injuries. Both have missed multiple games now. And there's just not a lot being heard on what's going on there or when they might be returning. So these are unfortunate wait and sees from a fantasy perspective. But we'd love to see them back, although we have Jake Wellman, who joined the team recently, and he's looking good and a timely fit at that. So maybe the team knew something that I don't through the grapevine. Lastly, Trent Frederick, recently traded to the Oilers, is expected to play before April. We don't have a solid timeline on when, but that is exciting news and could make him an interesting stream during your fantasy playoffs if you get the opportunity. A lot of times when these guys are joining the team, they seem to get that McDavid tryout where they get a couple games there. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him get 1 or 2 games where he's playing with some very interesting people there.
Yeah, well, after talking to Ryan last week about Frederick moving over, it sounded like he was going to be the Dave Semenko, the enforcer on the McDavid line. So we'll see if that comes to pass here. But yeah, of course, I think he'll probably get that look in that spot. We've never really found success getting that third wheel up there. But hey, who knows? Maybe the 1000th time will be the charm here. We're going to head into a brief little break. We'll join you again on the other side. You're listening to Short Shifts.
This NHL season has been as predictable as a puck rolling on its edge. No one knows where it's going, but that just means there's time for your favorite team to figure things out and games left for you to get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up! New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777. Or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like aloe or skins, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and brilliant marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling and, for shoppers, buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does selling better than Shopify. With Shop Pay, that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts are going abandoned and way more sales happening. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell whatever your customers are scrolling or strolling on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Skins uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
Welcome back to Short Shifts. I hinted at this earlier in the show, but I want to talk about Andrei Vasilevskiy. Not that there's a ton of actionable things to do with him here. Certainly you're not going to drop him, but it is notable that he is on a bit of a cold streak here, showing some wear after an extended streak of starts. I know at the beginning of the season, he told John Cooper he wanted to start 70 games. I don't know that they expected Jonas Johansson to be out for as long as he has been. But yeah, yes, he did get the Four Nations break in there, but Vasilevskiy has started 15 of the last 16 games for Tampa Bay going back to January 25th. In the last 3 games, so counting tonight at the time of recording, he has been below 900 save percentage, including a really bad start against Buffalo, which came right after he finally took a game off. Mostly I wanted to bring this up because we know Brian and Elon have talked at times about the idea of trading high workload goalies around the deadline because they tend to A, trail off a little bit, and B, sometimes get some rest towards the end of the season. Listen, it's probably too late for that in your league, and Vasilevskiy may very well bounce back just fine. But it is a bit of a data point in their favor. I don't know. How do you feel about this one? I'm always a little nervous about trading a goalie. I'd like to get a goalie who's getting lots of starts and just kind of sit on them for as long as I possibly can. Is that a move that you would have the guts to make? I don't think I am among the number of GMs who could pull it off.
I think that would be a hard one. I mean, you look at Vasilevskiy's stats, you look at his starts, depending what type of league you're in, those starts still matter. So it's tough to say that you could sit there at the trade deadline and trade him. and just wondering what was going to happen next. Vasilevskiy has been a beast for years. He's very good at holding this workload. Usually he comes in, he wins a lot of games when you would wish that he wouldn't against your team. I think this is a cold streak for him. I think that they will hopefully give him that little break that he needs, and he'll be able to heat back up. But when it comes to the trade deadline, it would be very interesting. I'd be very interested to see what someone could have got for him.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing, right? Is it's hard to say in a vacuum without knowing kind of what the offers that are out there could be. But, a top line, top power play player who was scoring pretty consistently, it's tough because he really has had a nice average. But anyway, just something to think about, because I know Brian and Elon have talked about it. It's something that comes up every single summer. And if you have you've gone through with it, let us know. If you traded a high workload goalie at the deadline, let us know on Blue Sky at Short Shifts Pod, and I'll be sure to respond to you. I promise I will. All right, let's. Well, man, this has been an interesting one. Buffalo and Ottawa trade has been a very interesting outcome. We can't obviously go through this episode without talking about the red hot Dylan Cozens. So yeah, what's the latest out of the results, the aftermath, the fallout of this Buffalo Ottawa trade?
Absolutely. One of the most interesting trades to happen at the deadline, if you ask me. I was very curious about where this was going to go. If you listen to the episode I did with Shams there, we were both talking about it. They had said this was a real hockey trade, and we wanted to know what that was, and we found out. Dylan Cozens is showing us. He is getting a ton of ice time. He's playing mostly with Batherson, which I'm not going to say I called, but I did. It was exciting. He's been a point per game since going to Ottawa. And I think that is really exciting for the people who have been holding on to Dylan Cozens, waiting for him to heat back up. He's had really good moments this year where he was hot, but a couple of lulls there where you might have thought about dropping him. I know a lot of people were dropping him at certain points, but if you held out, this is definitely a win in my books. Unfortunately, Norris is not having quite the same start on his side of the trade. His first game was 1 shot on goal, 1 block. It wasn't great. He did get the assist in his second game yesterday, but it's, again, not quite the excitement that Dylan Cozens is creating over in Ottawa.
Yeah, I love Josh Norris, good Michigan boy, of course, but very much an injury risk, which, I feel like they maybe should have taken more into consideration. I don't know. It's hard to say. Hindsight, obviously, is 2020 with Cozens showing out in Ottawa. But yeah, maybe they should have given him a little bit of a longer leash. But I know they're very excited about Yuri Kulik. And so, they could potentially open up a spot for him where, there wasn't really as many opportunities before, although certainly with all the injuries, he's had his opportunities. I got another cold goalie to talk about. Looks like cold goalies are my topic of the day. And I wanted to talk about Sam Ersson. 3 starts last week. He got all the starts, but they were not good. 3 goals against with just 25 saves on the March 4th game against Calgary, 4 goals against and 23 saves against Winnipeg, 4 goals against and 28 saves on March 8th. So just not doing what I'm sure the team sort of hoped that he would do. He has not been the reliable starter that some folks hoped they would get, maybe similar to maybe like a Montembeault-esque sort of player where it's not necessarily going to be spectacular and the team is okay, but not great. But yeah, they just, we haven't seen a ton. So Fedotov got a second straight start here on Tuesday night. He did lose on March 9th, but he only gave up 2 goals and had 20 saves. Unfortunately, not a great start for Fedotov tonight against Ottawa, who's kind of unleashed their offense, as we talked about before. 4 goals against and then a 5th on the empty net, only 19 saves. So, it could go right back potentially to Ersson, but if they are even splitting starts at all, and remember, Fedotov had that great start against Winnipeg, 29 saves, 1 goal against back on March 1st. I think that's maybe what they sort of had in mind when they've been starting him the last few. Before this 4 goals against game, he had 1, 2, and 2 against Winnipeg, Calgary, and New Jersey. So those are teams that can score. Maybe they still have that confidence. Maybe they want to see what they have in him. If Fedotov and Ersson are splitting starts at all, and Ersson's been weak lately, I think very much permission to drop. And honestly, with Tampa Bay, Carolina, and Tampa Bay again coming up, maybe you want to get out of the Philadelphia goaltender business, or at most maybe just stream, because I think those slots could be better used elsewhere.
Yes. As an Ersson owner, I have to replace him, most likely with a forward. I'm very much a one goalie person, but I am replacing him after last week's showing. I mean, he ended the week for me with negative cupful points. Not exactly what we want going into the playoffs. I enjoyed him for much longer than I probably should have on my team, and it was a good run. But I don't know that I will be holding out much longer, especially with those 2 starts going to Fedotov. That's a scary outlook. It's going to be playing the hot goalie, if you ask me, and that's not going to work when you're trying to win your fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, and even if neither goalie is hot, that still is probably like a 50-50 proposition. So tough to feel like you want to play either of those guys right now. Take us over to Nashville. We do have some hot streaks in Nashville, which has been nice to see from some of these fellas.
It is nice to see. I feel like Nashville had a big slump as a team to start the year for us. We've seen some interesting comments over the last little bit about the goalies, the forwards, everyone on the team, to be honest. But in their last few games here, they had 14 goals, which is wild. Like, those are some high-scoring games. They're playing against Chicago, Seattle, and Boston. So arguably should be fairly even, I think, personally. But we've got some exciting players, someone I did not think we were going to talk about as a hot streak this year, because in fact, he'd been a little bit of a cold streak at times. Steven Stamkos has had 8 points in his last 3 games. He had a hat trick on Saturday against Chicago. And just a fun fact, those were the only goals scored by Nashville that evening. So he seems to be warming up. I'm sure this is exciting for those people who are still holding Stamkos, who might have gone into some trades for him, especially nearing that trade deadline. But very exciting news. I would have to ask the question of, is he back? Because it seems like he might be. His previous games to that, he had 2 assists and 2 assists in both of those and a goal. So very exciting. And like I say, the team is in a high scoring phase right now. So maybe that's part of it. Also heating up in Nashville, we've got Ryan O'Reilly. He's had 5 points in his last 3 games. I think this is really exciting for the Nashville team. I think it's exciting for any of those fantasy managers who happen to hold on to these players long term. I personally didn't, so I am not getting the excitement out of Nashville right now, but very exciting to see, and especially leading into your fantasy playoffs. If you were one of those people who made a grab at a Stamkos during the trade deadline, very, very exciting.
Yeah, I'm setting up a transition here, but I'll mention Jonathan Marchessault too, who's kind of been a streaky scorer. He has 3 points in the last 3 games after going pointless for 5, and then he had 7 points in 4 games before that in February. What's really interesting about him is he's had several 4 and 5 shot games, but he's scoring in his games where he is shooting 3 or less. Through the entirety of February and March so far, only scoring in games where he has 3 or fewer shots and not converting on the games where he has more. So maybe it's a question of quality over quantity. But yeah, Marchessault has really picked things up. He's up to 78th overall player in Cupful, so closer to where he was drafted, I imagine. But, you know, after a disappointing start, he's kind of getting things back together here, unfortunately for Nashville. That did make them sellers at the deadline. So, you know, they needed to get the scoring going a little bit sooner, but they can, of course, try again next year. My transition, I just wanted to talk about Tom Wilson, who has also been very hot lately. He has 8 points over his last 5 games, including 2 shorthanded points against Detroit on March 7th. So a very nice run for him, and I bring him up because I made that swap, bringing in Wilson and sending out Marchessault. And, you know, the secondary scoring for Washington has really picked up. We've seen a lot more lately from guys like Alexei Protas and Connor McMichael. So, for those folks who kind of stayed the course, that's a nice setup for them as well. And one last kind of group hot streak here that I wanted to discuss is the San Jose Sharks. Despite losing Mikael Granlund at the deadline, the Sharks have been playing pretty nicely lately. They had some real high-scoring games. So since the start of March, 3-3, 6-3, and 2 goals in each of their games. So not bad at all. Obviously, you've got Macklin Celebrini out there, who's pretty widely owned. I would say 62% rostered on Yahoo. At this point in the season is pretty close to all the active leagues. But there are quite a few players who are fairly widely available who have had a very nice week. A week in which, Elizabeth, you reminded me, Tyler Toffoli had a sleepover with Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith, and that seems to have really propelled them to some success. Of course, Smith has been on a nice run for quite a while, but over the course of the last week, Celebrini with 2 goals and 2 assists, 18 shots, just shooting the lights out. Ekblad also with 2 goals and 2 assists, much more widely available, just 20% rostered. On Yahoo, 38% rostered, Tyler Toffoli, who is a little dinged up and day-to-day, but he's got a goal and 2 assists on 14 shots over the last week, which is 3 games. Will Smith in there, 2 goals, 2 assists. Those 2 goals are on 7 shots, so a little bit concerning there. And then from the defensive side of things, Timothy Liljegren with a goal and an assist, and Shakir Mukhamadullin with 3 assists in those 3 games, and also playing 21 minutes a night. The thing that is concerning, I think, is only 2 shots over those 3 games. So that's not an area where we're seeing Shakir really, come to the forefront quite yet. But leave the shooting to the Toffolis and the Celebrinis and the Eklands, I think, with the way that they are scoring lately. And those are some widely available players. I look at San Jose as a team that's not going to rest its stars. They're not heading into, playoff contention. Certainly, they've got a lot to prove. So those are players that are nice to have in the late season section, I think, because they're going to be maybe a little bit more reliable. They've got pride to play for, and they want to, get this year ended on a bang so that they can head into next year with a little more confidence.
Yes, that team bonding, though, there's something to be said about it. I'm not sure if every team needs to have group sleepovers while they're on the road, but it seems to be working. It seems to have really brought them together. They're all doing pretty well. So I think, maybe it's something to try if your team's in a bit of a slump. Just roll that COD in and let the guys have their sleepover. It seems to have heated things up. I am excited. We are finishing up here right about the time that we're going to start to see this puck drop between Nashville and San Jose. And after we talked about them both being on a hot streak, I'm expecting a very good game.
Yeah, would love to see some fireworks here, make us look like we really know what we're talking about. We've actually had some good luck, I think, with the short shifts boost for some of the players that we've spent time talking about. So obviously you will know more than us when you hear this show on Wednesday morning or whenever you happen to listen. And thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you downloading the show, joining the show. If you enjoyed it, please consider joining the Keeping Karlsson Patreon group, keepingkarlsson.com/patron. Just as a reminder, that patronage, if you're starting it now, it is late in the season, but there's a lot to learn from those other GMs. You've got a summer full of draft prep that you can work on, and patronage drops to just $1 a month over the summer. So might be something that you want to look into. Super supporters receive ad-free episodes. And of course, everybody who becomes a patron can interact with Brian, Elon, Elizabeth, myself, the rest of the Short Shifts crew, and hundreds of other talented fantasy managers on our active Discord server. Spend far too much time. I'm sure my employer, would not love to know how frequently I'm chatting about hockey. But, when the kids are in the room, I'm focused, right? Please check out GameDayTweets.com as well. Get all the best information from Twitter, including team-by-team info and searchable tweets by player name. Visit that site and the other great sites we use to research our episodes at Yahoo, Frozen Tools, and Natural Stat Trick. Our intro and outro music was created by Pat Roach. And until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short.